We're alive.
Hello, welcome to PHP Town Hall. This is episode 39 with myself, Ben Edmonds, and Phil Sturgeon. Tonight we're joined by Josh Lockhart.
Hello.
Josh, could you intro yourself for those that don't know who you are?
Sure, I'll try.
There's two people that don't know who you are.
I'm Josh Lockhart, and I work for a new media campaigns, a company in the little town of Carbar, North Carolina. Probably better known for the Slim framework, which I started. We're currently pushing really hard towards 3.0, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a little bit. Also just released a book with O'Reilly called Modern PHP. Go buy it. It's really good, I hear. So, yeah. And then I also started PHP the right way and working with that on Phil Sturgeon and a lot of other contributors. And so, yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
How'd you go about getting that situation with O'Reilly? Because that must be a fairly successful publishing company to work with.
Yeah, they're pretty successful. It kind of just fell into my lap, to be honest with you. We started PHP the right way probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. That was really successful, took off. Started Slim Framework, that got pretty notable in the community. O'Reilly took notice, and I was approached by Allie McDonald, Allie at O'Reilly on Twitter. Super nice, really helpful, and she asked if I'd be interested in writing a few blog posts for O'Reilly.com for the Radar blog. I said, why not? So put a few blog posts up. The first, which was I think called the New PHP or something like that, took off, went viral for a little bit. Really successful, which I was kind of surprised about. They were kind of surprised about. Yeah, so the two blog posts went well. Next thing, they approached me and asked me if I was interested in writing a book. And of course, I said yes. And obviously, there's a little bit of negotiations going on there for royalties and whatnot. But yeah, so got that. That started about a year ago, last May. It's been an effort ongoing since then. I can't say writing is the most fun thing to do in the world, but I got it done. And finally, as
I'm sure we can all agree that writing kind of sucks.
Oh, it sucks. It's terrible. Yeah, so finally got that on bookshelves probably last week, and I think the people over at the PHP UK conference got the book in hand before I did. So I was a little jealous about that, but it's kind of cool.
That seems a little bit unfair.
I know, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's how that went down.
Have you ever written a book before, like done a self-published piece of crap like me and Ben have done?
No, I haven't. I haven't written any book like published on LeanPub or otherwise. Okay. I've done basically just blog posts here and there. That's about it.
I assume the level of quality that you have to get that book up to is like substantially greater than whatever crap I fire out with typos and grammar.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. O'Reilly's actually, I don't want to release too many O'Reilly secrets, but here we go. O'Reilly's actually really cool to work with. Like their contracts, there's like a one-page contract, super easy, super nice, super flexible. They work on your schedule. They have a desired deadline, obviously, but as far as when you work, how you work, that's up to you. So I was really surprised about how the writing style. I don't know if you've read my book. It's very kind of fun, lighthearted, down to earth, not very academic at all. They don't really mind. They encourage the authors to kind of use their own style. I mean, obviously they'll grammar check, spell check, stuff like that. But as far as the language use and kind of the prose style, what have you, it's up to me, which is really kind of cool.
That's kind of interesting working with the publisher. What's the editing process like?
Again, super smooth. So I will write a chapter at a time, pretty much, or two at a time, submit those, and then continue on writing. But what I've submitted, they will review, send feedback, which I'll implement, and then once we've got the full initial draft written, probably about 3 months, 4 months before it goes to press, they will send it off to a technical editor. Which obviously runs through, just sanity checks the code, what have you, and then really close to print deadline, they'll send it off to their copy editor, who within about a week or so turns it around and just sends back a PDF with, hey, here's what we recommend for adding a hyphen, commas, punctuation, spelling, stuff like that. And yeah, I just say, this sounds good, and they go to press. So.
Okay, all right, cool. Do they police your voice at all, or do they let your voice just stand as is?
Oh, it was pretty much as is. I got very little pushback on any kind of language decisions or.
I guess so. I turned my first version over to my editors, and it was just laden with profanities. And that was the main feedback. You probably shouldn't write this like a sailor.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that would fly with O'Reilly, but yeah, as far as examples and what have you that I chose, they were pretty much cool and went with it. So it was really nice.
Yeah, I've decided to run mine by an editor as well. I've
Yeah.
got actually my sister has got like super qualifications at that. I don't know why I didn't do it before, but it was the thought of like handing over money when I didn't have any after being like homeless and internationally fucked for a little while. I was like, I need every penny so I can not sleep rough tonight. So that'll be lovely.
Nice.
And then
Yeah, what's
giving
I
someone
didn't see any of my
$600.
editors.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
they're
how
not
you
sure
doing
about that.
nowadays, Phil? What's your status?
Oh, all good. My visa's all good. I did go for a green card, which nearly messed up my brand new visa, but I managed to retract the green card, and now I'm fine for 3 years. As long as this startup doesn't go bankrupt, I'm fine. But
Awesome.
I've got my startup employee hoodie on as we were discussing, so I feel like I'm doing the best I can there.
So
Sticking with it.
did you not own the hoodie when the last startup went under, or was that not saving you?
I had to steal it off of somebody else after I was sleeping on their sofa, obviously.
Nice.
Don't know quite how I managed to detract that one, but yes, no, I'm hiring an editor. I've got both my sister and a good friend of mine who does a lot of editing to have a go at that. So they're both going to get paid, and I might not be so shit after I'm done.
You have
I'm
a new
also
cover
gonna get
too,
a
right?
position. Sorry?
New cover too, right?
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Brand new cover happening, and I'm going to send that off to CreateSpace and get a print version done.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, I will say getting an editor is worth its weight in gold. Like I got Ed Finkler and Adam Fairholm. Adam works down the street from me actually, and everyone knows Ed. I tried to get Cal Evans, but he bailed on me. But I did get him to give me a pretty swanky quote for the back cover, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, like I'm not very smart. I say a lot of dumb things, and Ed and Adam pointed all those out, and
To the
so
group.
say what?
Welcome to the group.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But that's what editors are for. Tell you what's stupid so you can get it out and not look dumb when the book's published.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
To switch conversations a little bit,
Sure.
how happy are you that you're now part of the FIG, and what was the motivation to join that?
Yeah, so I've always had a lot of people say, hey, you should probably get involved with this. And I actually met Matthew Arafini, MWAP, down at Florida for the first time, as well as Paul Jones, Anthony Ferrara, the whole crew. And yeah, so I was actually sitting at a table down in the kind of the atrium in the middle of the hotel, and then suddenly all these stars from PHP land come down and just sit down at the table with me, which was really cool. And got to talking, and they asked me if I was interested, and so I write Slim. I have an interest in where standards go, and so I figured I'd give it a shot, and applied and had their 20-day vote and got accepted, and now I'm a part of the inner sanctum of PHP Figdom.
The real question is, did Paul Jones vote for you or not?
I think he did. He actually sponsored me.
Wow. Holy shit. Okay.
I know, right? And I know Kayla Daniels is got sponsored as well by Paul Jones. She got in the same time I did. So.
Yep. It was as soon as I was nowhere near either project, they were happy to let Kayla in.
Yep.
Well, that's good.
So are you officially out of the FIG now, Phil? Or are you still involved? Are you still
so
involved, right?
PyroCMS was acquired last summer sometime, and I've been a technical advisor since then. We agreed that I would stay on as the FIG person because I was the coordinator for PSR 7 and PSR 5, the doc block one. So it kind of made sense that I stuck around for a little while instead of Ryan having to completely rebuild the entire company that he just acquired and get a new version of the product out and argue with jackasses on a mailing list. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense at the time. So he focused on that. I focused on my thing. And now that PSR 7 is still going on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to step aside and you just take over.
Yeah.
So luckily, Paul Jones and Bo Simmons are on PSR 7, and they're doing a great job. We've chatted about PSR 7 a few times on air, so we shouldn't bang on about that too much. But it's the
So is MWAP still leading it or no?
Yes, yeah,
Mhm.
what's still there.
Yep.
And they're getting close. I think they moved it to review, which is a good step in the right direction.
Yep. He actually got a lot of feedback coming out again after they went into review.
Yeah.
Rehashing a lot of old arguments, I think, about immutability and whatnot. But I'm hoping it'll go through.
the last time it went to review, everyone said, "Oh my God, these messages are mutable. Mutable is terrible. It's the worst thing in the world. Everything has to be immutable." So we went, "All right, let's try and fix that." And then everything became immutable, and now everyone's going, "What the fuck is this immutability all about? It makes it really hard to use." Well, it's one or the other, mate.
Well, the value objects are awesome. Like I actually just converted Slim, what's going to be Slim 3 over to PSR 7 using the value objects. Love it. Love it.
That was actually going to be.
So let's actually get into that a bit.
Sure. Why not?
Slim 3, tell us about it.
Yes, Slim 3.
Slim.
Yeah, it's coming up.
To it.
Yeah, my wife just walked in the door here.
It's all right. Tell her to come say hey.
Yeah, get her on the show.
1 second. We can edit this out. It's live. Whatever. But yeah, Slim 3 is coming up. It's going to be really cool. I've been working on it for, well, Slim 3 has been kind of a mythical version upcoming for about a year and a half now. It's been my fault that I kind of was writing some sort of a book and had to take off for a little while. And but yeah, so I'm back on it. I know, right? Yeah, back on it. And as anybody can see on the Slim repo, it's been moving really fast at light speed lately. A lot of cool things coming up. A lot of things are being deprecated and removed. I think most notably, I'm delegating a few of the more important responsibilities of the framework to some external components. And I'll talk about that in a second. But most notably, FastRoute is going to be in charge of routing by Nikita. And we're using Pimple for dependency injection. And we were going to use Zend-Crypt for the cryptography, but I just completely removed that out, and I'm going to delegate that to an optional middleware. But yeah, so it's going to be solid, it's going to be fast, and it's going to be more lightweight than it was before, so it's going to be really cool.
Even more lightweight, I like it.
I know, right? Yeah, it's about one of the internal struggles I've always had was I built Slim as kind of its own little self-contained little kernel that did everything it needed to do on its own. Because I know Ed Finkler was the reason he loves Slim is because it's one dependency. Like that's all you need, and it does everything. And obviously that's not the best solution nowadays. You know, PHP is going more towards distributed components. Some components do things a lot better than what Slim did on its own before. And I recognize that, and I know that it's not ideal for some people to have a few third-party dependencies, but what the heck? That's kind of where it's going. Slim 3 is gonna have, I think, 3 dependencies. That's nice. About it. But
so, what approach did you take with views? Because that's one thing that almost seems out of place to me.
Right.
Slim includes the view handling, and it seems like that'd be better regulated to a third party.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Currently, for those who don't know, 2.0 had its own built-in default view object, which was basically a PHP class that took some variables, extracted them and then rendered or included another template file, and then sent that into an output buffer, which was returned and displayed by the Slim framework. And it provided a class, I believe, or an interface rather, that you could extend to implement other views that you had for Twig or Smarty, what have you. And we're doing a lot of housekeeping right now. Obviously we're delegating a lot of these concerns to more appropriate components. The view is probably one of those that we're going to do that for. We're probably going to define an interface, if nothing else, and then provide third-party view objects, some first-class objects that we could, or components rather, that we could pull in and use that use that interface, or we could let people provide their own. But what you're saying is separating it from the core repository is definitely something we're going to look at doing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I agree. Yeah, that needs to happen. Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Slim will just be like an empty object.
Yeah. Well, what Slim's becoming is not necessarily its own island, but it's becoming a curated collection of a lot of things working together well that you don't necessarily have to worry about doing yourself. I think that's where things are going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
have you seen Orno? And what are your thoughts on Slim versus?
I have. I actually. That's what League Route now, right? Or is that the foundation for League Route?
Oh, I have no idea.
Wait, what's going on? Oh, the Orno components. Yeah. Orno was a component vendor, just like the PHP League is, and mm-hmm. It was kind of the same idea, but was around before we were a thing. The two most.
It's kind of it's more focused, right? So it's kind of the core framework
Kind of, no. He was just making packages that he thought were useful. So Philip Bennett is a component developer. He liked the idea of just being able to use various different components without having an entire framework involved. So he started making some components. One of them was routing, and there are a few other bits here and there. In the end, he's decided to wind that project down. He's given the Orno route and the Orno dependency injection container, whatever. They are both on the league now, so we have those. And he's still project lead on those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I talked with him a little bit about using the league route component in Slim, and I actually did a branch using that, which I pushed up briefly to GitHub. And it worked. It worked well. There was nothing wrong with it at all. It just had a little too much stuff that I didn't need. I didn't need the container, and I didn't need the multiple routing strategies for how you dispatch the callable. It has multiple strategies in place, which I didn't really need. I just needed one. So I ended up stripping it out and dropping down just to bare fast route, doing that, which worked. It's a little leaner, a little faster. So
yeah, the idea of that router is kind of opinionated in how you want things, and it kind of has the dispatching logic built in, which sits on top of the container. So if you're trying to make a really simple, like you're starting from nothing, you've got one PHP file, and you want to make kind of a router which has controllers and methods and stuff like that, then that one package will get you running. But if you already have kind of all that surrounding architecture, then that's probably a bit much for you.
Yeah, right. And I will say to everybody watching, League Route is awesome. Like it's one of the best routing components that I've seen. So if you need routing, go look at that first. But that's built on top of Fast Route, which is when I ended up dropping down to for Slim.
So speaking of that, how are you integrating PSR 7 support?
Sure. Yeah. So this is again a topic that came out of Sunshine PHP down in Florida. Again, I was sitting down with Matthew Wire-Finney and talking about where he's at with PSR 7. He gave me kind of the elevator pitch for it, and I think that would work great with Slim. Slim 3.0, it's a major version change. So if I'm going to break stuff, I'm going to do it then. PSR 7 is the upcoming standard. I want Slim to stay relevant, so why the hell not, right? So I stripped out, Slim again, since the beginning has been kind of my personal playground with learning stuff. So I had built my own request and response objects, which they had interfaces for, so it was easier to, you could provide your own, but you had to kind of write your own class to adhere to that interface, which is, again, a little bit of work. So, I stripped all that out, rewrote some first-party request response objects, but against the PSR 7 interface, and so Slim will have those out of the box, but it's just a drop-in replacement if you want to use Fly HTTP or Guzzle if it eventually goes PSR 7, which I think it is. I know he's got a branch out for it. But yeah, so it's going to make...
It's in discussion, I believe.
It's in discussion? Yeah.
Intention.
I think it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I want Slim to be interoperable with as many components as possible. That's just another way to do it.
So this is basically just me asking you questions about Slim 3 and your choices.
No, go for it.
But so the logger, are you changing that at all, or are you keeping
the logger?
Logger.
The logger's gone. It does not exist in Slim 3 at all. I know. All right. Slim 2 is way too.
So it was nice that it was included, but holy shit, you just had to rewrite that motherfucker every time.
I know, right? Again, I'm learning from a lot of my own mistakes here. But yeah, I had a lot of complaints with the logger. It was just kind of too conventional, made too many assumptions. Monolog exists, so why not just use that? And Slim's built on top of Pimple. Slim actually, the app class extends Pimple. So it's its own dependency injection container, so it's easy just to pop in, your own logger and call that wherever you need to.
Cool. Now is there a logging PSR yet, Phil?
Yeah, 3.
There's so many fucking PSRs.
Dude, I've spent so many hours banging on about PSRs on this podcast. You just
don't fucking name them.
I'm surprised you didn't know that. You write PHP, right?
They're so pointless. I mean, I feel like I'm doing it.
Oh, I had an interesting experience. If I could just go on a little chat. When I was at Confu, we were at the speakers' dinner, it was last month or whatever it was, and I was sat with a couple of people. Mark Story off of Cake PHP was quite cool, and a few other new friends that I'd made, but I didn't know anyone that well. And the guy to my left, I was like, "So, what do you do?" And he's a consultant for something or other, and we were just chatting about him for a really long time, which I guess is how everyone else feels when I talk to them. But it was
constantly.
But yeah, I was. He said that one of the various things he teaches are, code quality and testing and code standards. I said, oh, that's interesting. What code standards do you teach when you're trying to kind of improve these developers that you're consulting to? And he started like listing off. He mentioned a few PSRs. I'm like, oh, interesting. I'll ask him some questions. And that just led to him screaming about how much he hated every PSR apart from PSR2, which is the only one that made sense. Now, that's quite unique. Normally, people are like, PSR2, fucking fig, taking my tabs, how dare you? But that's the only one that he liked, and the rest of them were apparently ludicrous. He got really confused with the fact that he was complaining for ages that the logging PSR was useless because it meant that you couldn't catch the logs. I'm like, why would you want to catch a log? I think you mean exceptions. He's like, oh, yeah, well, exactly, but I use an exception, and then I can't log it. I don't know what you're talking about. Logs and exceptions are different things. Maybe you want to log some exceptions and then like catch other ones. But it was about an hour of him screaming at me about how much he hates PSRs. And I really felt like I should have mentioned right at the start of the conversation, hey, so I used to work on the FIG and I was involved in these. Just to avoid any of that shit happening again because it was awful. Me and Adam Kolb just ran away.
Yeah. Speaking of PSR2, I heard that Laravel is actually going over to that soon.
I was very surprised.
I was too. Kudos to Taylor Otwell. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Finally, wrangled him into submission, I guess.
Yeah. It's definitely taken over kind of the community. There's not many still left not supporting it after that.
Yeah.
CodeIgniter will probably go there on version 4.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I mean, are you gonna camel case all your shit as well?
It's in discussion. It's a high probability.
That'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, what are the sneaky potential plans for CodeIgniter? If people don't know, that Ben is now one of the CodeIgniter people. He's
No, I didn't know that.
taken over my sloppy seconds.
As usual. I'm going to join the FIG soon and finish your shit. No, I'm totally not. CodeIgniter decided against the FIG because it's just a complete waste of time. Now that PSR 0 is done, there's nothing left. So yeah, I'm on the advisory board, steering committee, council. We don't, we had names and they don't really make sense, but we decided what the future of CodeIgniter will be. We've been really pushing hard for V3 to come out, and we kind of tabled V4 discussions for now while we really push V3. Hopefully by April, V3 will be out, but we'll see.
Now, CodeIgniter, that's the one that was sold to the Canadian University?
Yeah, so BCIT, British Columbia Institute of Technology, runs the project now, and they really push for open sourcing. So we have completely open source teams, and all the development, for the most part, is open source. We kind of utilize the college students a bit to fix bugs or kind of look at new features and things like that. But the main goal of the project now is completely open source.
Is this the first PHP framework that just has a sweatshop of coders that are desperate to get grades and qualifications working for it?
Do you want an F? You add this fucking feature.
You better make those tests pass, or someone's not going to next year.
We don't use test.
Oh, of course, I forgot what framework I was talking about. I loved CodeIgniter before I knew what unit tests were.
So we actually have a test suite. It's a really, really bad test suite, but it's there.
It is. It started to catch a few bugs before I quit the team, so that was nice. It got up to like 54% code coverage or something, which is better than a kick in the teeth, but not that much better when it's kind of that janky. Also, the test suite, like so much of it was mocked as well, that because of the whole CodeIgniter, like the single instance, the get instance that everything kind of patches onto. Because of that, there was so much mocking the whole way through, and because of the tight level of coupling between every single class, like you call the image manipulation class and it calls fucking form validation or something bizarre, that yeah, it was pretty hard to test anything.
Yeah, it's still pretty much like that. There's been some effort to make it better, but for the most part, we said fuck it until V4.
Yeah.
People will actually do like true injection at least, and that'll really fix a lot of that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, I think your biggest probably initial hurdle will be kind of community outreach, making people realize that CodeIgniter's not in fact dead.
So I think this is kind of the misconception with
Yeah.
the more modern PHP community, and that's kind of not our base. That's not who we're appealing to.
Yeah.
Very large legacy community now, and then we also have the new community, and we really kind of expect to stick with that.
Mm-hmm.
We are owned by universities, so it really makes sense that we could be the place for beginners to start and blossom from, and we have no preconceptions that will be where you stay, and we
Sure.
really work for that. So really,
That's
our
like a smart way to
main thing
go.
when we're evaluating new things is how do we keep this shit super simple,
Sure.
and then people can move on from there as they learn more.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the sad things that's happened since I started screaming about how much I loved Laravel in 2012 or whenever it was that Laravel used to be it was a direct CodeIgniter replacement. It was the modern approach. It was pretty much the same thing. Like you need inputs and sessions. It's the same. It's just a slightly different interface. But everything was perfectly logical and it kind of made sense. But now that Laravel has grown and added more features and they've started to kind of approach more complex subjects like DDD, and they've got service providers, and they've got all these other things, it's become really fucking complicated for basic developers to start using it. And even if the framework itself wasn't that complicated, which, to be fair, a lot of the time it isn't, the kind of surrounding education materials, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, so I kind of disagree. The framework itself is really fucking complicated. Like, it even takes me a little while to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Well, it depends how you're using it. I mean, if you want to use facades and you want to just like do it like it was.
Yeah, so actually using it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
But the framework itself is pretty complicated.
Oh yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of
You
movement.
could almost say the same for like Rails. Like, it's really kind of trending towards that, the cake and Rails kind of feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers of fudge in between you and what's happening. I was having an argument with someone the other day about, of course I was, about facades, and they were like, well, the problem with facades is that, it looks like you're doing one thing, but really it's doing something else. I'm like, you just defined the word facade. That's what facade means. But like, with a facade, it's very much the same as with Kohana, for example. You'd have a static class, and you just kind of fired it off, and it would do some stuff, and then you'd session get, and you get the session, and it was nice and easy. So there is a lot of ease of use if you use it kind of like it's CodeIgniter. You can just use static classes. You can't unit test shit, but it's really easy to use. Or you can use it in a really complicated way, much more like Symfony and Zend, where you dependency inject everything and you have repositories and all these complicated things and DDD all the time for a fucking hotel booking website for no reason. But what ends up happening is that because there's the easy way of using it and the hard way of using it, everyone starts to like trend towards doing it the hard way. And all the education, all the video sites like Laracast and these other places suggest that you do things the hard way. The forums say, why are you doing it that way? That way's for dickheads. And everyone ends up doing it the really complicated way. So people just...
Yeah, so I think that's part of the problem too, though. When you give like a noob an option to go complicated, they're going to read some tutorial and they're going to go the complicated way because it sounds cooler or whatever. It's almost this thing where once you get to a certain level of being a senior or whatever, you realize, maybe we should just throw this shit together in a weekend and not use command-based architecture for the booking website.
Yeah. Also, the website that me and Zach Hitzmiller made for the Made in Production T-shirt shipping, we fired that together using some rough-ass Flask, which is probably the same as Slim in the Python world. Mm-hmm. It was really, really rough code, and it just fired your credit card information off to Stripe, and we saved a token in the Postgres database. Wasn't unit tested, didn't do shit, didn't break, it was fine. And thanks to that, we managed to get our business idea off the floor, and it was okay. But if we'd have spent like 6 months trying to unit test every single line, and not that I'm complaining about testing, but if we'd have focused on building this amazing, repository-based, domain-driven thing with value objects for each T-shirt and customer and everything else, we would never have got that done because we would have just got drunk and watched more To Catch a Predator instead of actually getting the job done.
So Zach watching To Catch a Predator seems kind of weird with his whole beard.
I think he's getting advice.
Zach Hitzmiller, people. Very professional developer we're talking about right now.
He's a very professional developer and one of my best friends, but he looks a little bit suspect. He told me a story about how he carried his wife home from a party after she was a little under the weather, and he got onto the subway in New York with her over his shoulder like this, and she's really small. Now, she's not quite as small as Ben, but she's a short lady. And he just got on there with someone who's face down, could have been a child, no one could have told, and there's just like 20 people just like, so I'm not going to ask. No one in New York cares if you carry a child home.
Anyway, that was an offshoot there.
What were we talking about again?
So we're not actually complaining, or I'm not personally complaining that Laravel's kind of drug some developers along in the good architecture and good design, but I am complaining that L5 is basically a different framework, at least philosophy-wise.
I think I can summarize my point a little bit more briefly than that whole pile, but the problem was I used to recommend Laravel as a CodeIgniter replacement, and many people do, but these days it's not at all. I always used CodeIgniter for as long as I did, mostly because people were paying me, but partly because for things like PyroCMS, it was the early learning framework. It was the absolute easiest. You've literally just worked out what a computer is. This is a framework you can use to build some stuff. You can't test it. They probably aren't trying to test because they don't know how to do that shit. So I like the fact that there is a insanely easy, just Muppet-friendly framework out there. And if CodeIgniter can be that again, then that's a good thing. But the only problem that CodeIgniter has is that it's exactly the same now as it was in 2011. Like the released version is even version 3. Version 3 started like 3 years ago, and it's still basically the same. So there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of catching up to do, but at the same time they're also not trying to catch up, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. There needs to be like a dead simple version, like framework for beginners to use to get started, because everyone's going to start somewhere. I feel like a lot of the more modern, well-architected frameworks nowadays assume kind of a fundamental knowledge of, how HTTP works and RESTful, APIs and stuff like that, and even Slim to some degree. Like you kind of have to understand, you have an incoming request and how you can manipulate that and use that and send an appropriate response. So it requires a more fundamental, understanding of what's going on under the hood.
Yeah, so like Slim is simple in itself, but for a noob, it's hard.
Right,
you have to know how to handle all these third-party things, get them in and inject them and use them. It doesn't give you what you need to make a site.
Sure.
You don't know what you're doing.
And middlewares too are just going to confuse the crap out of someone. I remember looking at middlewares a couple of years ago, and I honestly had no idea what that was all about. I tried using it, and I got confused. I know exactly what they are now, but I didn't.
Sure. I mean, that's speaking of middlewares, like that's becoming a kind of a nice big buzzword now in the PHP community. A lot of people are starting to use it. I mean, obviously it's existed, in Rack and Whiskey, I think, in Python land for quite a while, but it's just becoming kind of a big staple in PHP nowadays.
Which I'm super excited for.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, Slim's had it for a long time now. But
so V2 has a custom middleware, right? What's it have?
Yes. So it has a class that you can extend. I don't think it has an interface, but you could extend this class, and then you could use those objects as custom middleware. Now in version 3. Again, after having talked with Matthew R. Finney a good bit down in Florida, it's using just basically you have a callable that you can invoke and pass 3 arguments: the request, the response, and the next middleware that you can optionally invoke with a request and response. And so it kind of works like an onion that you build up layer by layer by layer, and then the request filters its way through, hits the Slim application itself, and then filters its way back out. So it's very flexible. It's exactly how Rack, their middleware, is architected, and that was kind of my inspiration for it. But it's extremely flexible. Extremely flexible.
Josh, how do you go about identifying to your audience what type of user should be using Slim? Like, do you do anything to kind of point out your ideal end user, or do you let them work it out for themselves?
So far, I've let them work it out for themselves, and that's probably not the best way to go. Version 3, which I think has been very obvious, has been all about kind of rebranding, building community, building a better understanding of what Slim is, what it's for, and how to use it. Some of those pieces are still being worked out, like improved documentation, etc., is slowly happening. But yeah, with 2.0, it's kind of like, here's Slim, use it, and a lot of people know how to do that. A lot of people don't. And I use Slim, and the reason I built Slim was to basically build smaller APIs that drove larger, front ends remote front ends that usually had no coupling directly with the API. I could manipulate data, store data, send data, what have you. That was largely what I wrote Slim for. Some people ran with it and built these ginormous, applications with, full-blown GUIs and, whatever else, and, more power to you if you want to do that. Slim can do it. Whether it's the best tool for that or not, I don't know. That's up for debate. Depends on the application. I mainly use it to kind of manipulate data, kind of send data to different places, consume data from different places. That's how I use it, but that's only one way to use it. So, but yeah, version 3 is definitely going to clarify that. It's going to have a lot better documentation, which I think alone will help people understand what Slim is and what it can do. And I'm going to hope to have kind of a portfolio on the Slim's main website that kind of has, hey, here's what people have done with it. Go check these things out and see what it can do. So
a little offshoot, but basically, what are you using for docs?
I saw read the docs, and I discovered that there was the underlying command line tool called mkdocs. I don't know if there's any official relationship there between those. But yeah, mkdocs spits out a nice default theme, which basically uses your structured markdown files to generate a really nice, responsive, easy-to-browse documentation site. And those are currently up at docs-new.slimframework.com, so you can kind of see those as I build them out. But it's super easy, and it's built. I use the mkdocs gh deploy command, which, like in one command, it compiles everything and pushes it right up to GitHub Pages, and it's immediately accessible, which is really cool. It saves me a ton of time. So I love it. I love it. And I know a lot of people on Twitter haven't heard about it either, and they've seen me using it, and now they love it. So I don't know why I haven't heard about it before, but it's awesome. So.
Was that read the docs? I'll have to make sure to get a link to that.
Yeah.
Can you throw a link into the chat, and we'll make sure that gets into the show?
Yeah, for sure. But so there's read the docs, which seems to be kind of a hosted service or a hosted platform, which gives you like I don't know what search thing they use behind, like Elasticsearch or something, which makes all your docs searchable. But there's also the open source mkdocs tool, which generates a standalone site that is not necessarily on read the docs. Oh,
nice. Because I saw the hosted version and thought I don't want that.
Right, exactly. That's how I started, and I was like, I don't necessarily want this, but then I found mkdocs, and it generates the exact same thing that you can host on your own.
That's pretty cool. Paul Jones recently released something called DocBook, and he's kind of turned around on his anti-league everything approach that seems to be recently, and he's using the common mark package from the league. So I thought it'd be quite interesting if he's using the league common mark package to make DocBook, and then we use DocBook on all of the league sites, which will be on the common circular. But that looks pretty cool as well. It's still pretty early, but it's fun.
Nice.
Which takes us perfectly onto the next topic. Josh, you are one of the most recent people to be suckered into my ego fest, where I basically run around the internet stealing people's code and forcing them to make me look good by putting it under my brand.
So the official title by Reddit is League of Extraordinary Egos.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
On the team?
I'm excited. Yeah, I was joking on Twitter that I'm waiting for my ceremonial robes to arrive, for getting this elite group. It's cool. Yeah,
I think you just get a framed picture of Phil Sturgeon.
It's good enough.
You get a photograph of some part of me.
Yeah, I'll hang it right there.
So just to clarify what not the photograph, that's happening, but just to clarify the history. Yeah, Snapchat is my go-to tool. Speaking of tools, so what am I talking about? The history of so the league stuff. So we don't really run around trying to steal people's packages that much, but occasionally if someone's not maintaining it or doing a shit job, then we might try and steal that. Or if we come up with a new idea. I'm not saying you've done a shit job. Or we come up with an idea, we might look around for something that's kind of doing it but needs some work, right?
Yeah, so, I think that describes my upload package exactly. Yeah, so a while back I needed something to handle file uploads to kind of run some validators on the files to make sure that maybe this isn't a JPEG image, it's less than 5 megabytes in size, and if all of those validations pass, then send it on its way. So I wrote kind of a really quick and dirty component called CodeIgniter/upload on GitHub. It does exactly that. It doesn't do anything more. It assumes that you're uploading through a multi-part request, typically from an HTML form. It has those validators that I just described, and then it assumes you want to upload those to your local file system. There's a lot of assumptions there. It is what it is. It works well for my niche need for it. A lot of other people have found it useful. But yeah, so Phil approached me several times over and over on Twitter, and he was like, you should get this into the league. And yes, I was
so when
like,
you say Phil approached you over and over, do you actually mean like over and over and over and over and over?
27 times.
yeah, I'm not surprised. He was like, email, Twitter, everything. He was like, But yeah, so I finally gave in, and so he stopped badgering me. And so yeah, so now there's a league uploads component, which is slowly being worked on. It's going to do everything that my component did and more. And it's going to have some nice integration with the league fly system component, which is incredible. So now you can receive upload data, upload files, and send them to tons of different places. S3, your local file system, any PHP wrapper, pretty much, which will be really cool. But yeah, so that's slowly being worked on. I think there's several people. There's Kayla Daniels is helping out. I'm on it. Philip Benito is this name?
Yeah, Bennett, I think it is.
Yeah.
He's a British chap as well. I think the
Sure,
O is
sure.
part of the username.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the idea was I was working on a Rails project at the day job. We're handling some image uploads, and I noticed that once again that Rails has really nice things. It's really infuriating because I've used Rails plenty of times and I know how it works and whatever else, and I don't like the framework itself that much, but there are so many awesome gems for Ruby and Rails in general.
It's okay if you're a fanboy. I won't judge you.
I am going to RailsConf next month, so I can really say that much. But it is free, so
You're gonna get a signature from DHH.
I might get a slap if I argue with him enough. Yeah, so I've noticed that like the Rails community often has very nice things, and one of the biggest, most impressive things about the Rails or Node communities compared to the PHP world is that their gems and their components and their packages and their modules are really, really, really fucking nice. There's a gem for everything. It works really well, and if you don't like the way that one works, there's probably another one that's pretty good as well. And I was using one called Refile, which is an alternative to Paperclip. They're both fucking great at image uploads. Using Refile, and you can upload an image, you can read it from any stream, so you can read it from the request body or from a variable or from wherever it is, and then you can send it on its way. You can send it to the local file system, or you can send it to S3 or anywhere else. And I just thought, I really want that. Like, next time I have to do that job in PHP, how fucking mundane is it to, like, someone says, oh, we need avatars, just use Gravatar. No, you can't use Gravatar. Fine, I've made this upload system, I've got to validate it, then I've got to plug it into S3, oh, for fuck's sake. And then you're testing it, and then you have to, like, mock the S3 process. Like, I just want to put it on a local file, oh, for fuck's sake. So I just put on the league on the mailing list, hey, Refile's really good, does anyone want to copy that? Maybe we can coax Josh into, improving upload, and we can start that as a base. And then he went, yep, I'll do it. And like 10 other people in the league went, yep, we'll do it too. I was like, holy shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
15 people on it.
Yeah, so I'm running point, kind of keeping it organized moving forward. But yeah, there's a lot of people, sending input on it, and so it's going to turn out really cool.
How many members does the league have now?
Well, there isn't really such a thing as members. There's people on the mailing list, and there's project leads. We've got 28 packages, so there's 28 members, project leads. It's just a bunch of people on the mailing list.
So basically like Reddit.
Yeah, apparently. Everyone likes to say, the league's like this, the league's like that. The most common one is, the league's like Pair. I mean, you fuck off with these Pair comparisons. Jerks. I mean, I can see the fair comparison is that, like, Pair was a repository of code where you had to kind of put it under a namespace, and you had to... Do we have to
talk about this again? Because I'm so tired of talking about this.
Sorry?
Do we have to have the same pair like discussion again?
Oh, we did Pair. All right, we'll move on. Carry on. What else we got? We've got 9 minutes left.
9 minutes left? What the fuck?
Yeah, someone should go pick a random topic off Reddit, and we can
So, since we got limited time left, I have Slim stickers.
Nice.
Oh,
They're
hell yeah.
available on slimframework.com. Go buy
Now
them.
we're doing stickers. I also have GluttonyCon stickers.
Where'd you get
GluttonyCon.
Why does
that?
we have such
I
budget?
mailed you a few, Phil.
You did?
Yeah. No, check your mail. They should be there soon.
Excellent.
Also have a pluck. Go buy it.
Nice.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, let's pimp your book a little bit. So,
Yeah.
the book.
So, Modern PHP, just published by O'Reilly. It's about 250 some odd pages. It covers a lot of the new things in PHP land, up to I think 5.6.4, so it's fairly recent. Goes over a lot of important new features like namespaces, traits, generators, a lot of those cool things. It goes over how to build and find and use components. And our league fly system gets a big shout out in there. Yep. And it goes over some basic deployment strategies, and then towards the end of the book, it goes into and introduces Hack and HHVM and how those can kind of help you fill some gaps where PHP.
So do you cover Hack conceptually or implementation?
No, actually, I go into a little bit of detail, not too deep. Didn't have that many pages to write about. Well, I was given a limit about 250 pages, and I had to fit all the stuff within that limit.
So basically, you're saying you ran out of things to talk about, and the last 50 pages are Hack.
Hacking.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, but no, Hack's awesome. I love Hack. I actually think it's a lot better in PHP in some regards. But yeah, so I cover a little bit of that and a little bit of HHVM. So I will say that this book is really kind of aimed at beginners and intermediate users. I think expert users, this is going to be more of a really good refresher. But yeah, if you're just getting into PHP, or if you have an agency who has a lot of developers who can, obviously are not up to speed on the latest and greatest in PHP, this is an excellent book to get a hold of. I think it'll be a big help for you. That's my pitch.
Nice. You mentioned earlier that you were happy that O'Reilly were okay with you using the examples that you used. What sort of examples did you? Is there like a common theme throughout the code you write in the book?
There's not a theme. There's not a general theme. It's more just kind of a conversation, and it's more of a stream of consciousness conversation, I would say. A lot of random things go through my head. There's one chapter on interfaces where I can compare PHP interfaces to cars. I think specifically like a Subaru and a Civic and a Bugatti. And so it's just a lot of little fun, lighthearted conversations going on. So I kind of keep it kind of easy read. It's not academic at all. So.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of books out there that are kind of written by computer science bros for computer science bros, and without ever meaning to patronize, we do have to recognize that not everyone in the PHP community is a fully qualified computer scientist.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I kind of wrote the book like what kind of a book would I like to read when I was first getting started. So it's definitely down to earth, and it's not a hard read at all. So and hopefully a lot of people will get up to speed on it. Because yeah, down in Miami. There was a talk, and I don't know if it was the panel you were in, Phil, or if it was another one, but someone asked, like, who's heard of the PHP Fig, or who's heard of what a PSR is? Not many hands are raised.
Yeah.
So I was really kind of taken aback by that, and I think that kind of reaffirms why this book is kind of necessary, because hopefully it'll introduce a lot of PHP developers to the more modern practices.
Yep.
That's what it's
Very
for.
cool. Go ahead and throw a link in the group chat, which there was an earlier link that you did not do that for either. And we'll make sure they both come in the show notes.
Sure. Let me find that.
Or just
if you could do our job for us, that would be stunning.
Does he want money or not? That's the question.
Well, we have zero budget because nobody wants to give us any money for sponsorship, and I assume that's because we keep swearing and drinking. But I enjoy it
because you yell at the sponsors when they email us.
Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah.
While I'm pimping out my book, I will say if you're gonna buy it, please buy the ebook. I get more royalties off of that.
Okay. All right.
If you pimp the book anymore, we're gonna have to charge you sponsorship money.
That's true. I'll stop. Please.
No, I can't blame you. There's a few times during my API pain points talk where I think I said you should buy my book like 7 times. But seriously, no, like it's all in there. You should just buy it.
Just buy it. Yeah.
That's most of
I bought the book.
Q&A on my modern talk is basically just like, I have a book, you should buy that. Yeah.
Here's a coupon code. Shut up, I don't want to talk about it. So, to wrap up, Josh, what conferences are we likely to see you at next? What's coming up?
That's a good question. I'm not going to be able to make Lone Star. I'm not going to be able to make PHP Tech. I don't know what else really is coming up this year. I know the one in Seattle that they're working on getting sponsorship for. If there's any other ones that people want to see me at, let me know. I can probably find some funding to get me out there.
We would love to see you at Pacific Northwest. in Seattle. So definitely submit to that, sir.
Okay. See what I can do.
Sweet. And on that note, we actually finished on time. We didn't start on time, but we
Bill's riding his bikes.
Well, let's keep going with that conversation. Phil, what conferences are you going to be at next?
Oh, I'm going to Lone Star PHP. I'm giving my fucking API talk again. I'm really sorry, everyone, but apparently people like it, so I feel like a shill for giving it for almost the exact year now. But people seem to
basically a one-trick pony. We know that.
Yes, so I'm going to try and bust out of that one-trick pony situation. I'm going to Open West, which is what used to be Ski PHP. I'm doing some 2 new talks there. They want me to do 3, the API one and these 2 new talks, and that sounded fucking awful.
Wait, so you're doing the API one at Open West as well?
No, I asked them if I could not do that because
I'm doing my
I want to retire that
at
talk.
Open West.
Sorry?
I'm doing my API one at Open West. I feel like we
yeah.
have one-trick conferences and we both get API.
That would be genius. No, I'm not doing that one, luckily. I'm doing one talk about the League of Extraordinary Packages, which I'm in 2 minds as to about how that's going to go. And another one is sprinkling in some Go for fun and profit, and it's the idea of it was meant to be a talk that I do at Sonic PHP conferences and explain how not your entire application has to be PHP. If there's part of it that's running slow, dumping it off to a kind of a service-orientated architecture approach might make a lot of sense. But now that Ski PHP is Open West and it's a general thing, they've put me in the Go track next to people that write the fucking language itself.
Wait, so there's actually a Go track there?
There's actually a Go track there. And they've got like all these really smart Go people, and then me just twatting on about some like I learned Go last year. Like it's
That's how I feel at PHP conferences. It's all right.
So that's going to be entertaining. But yeah, those 2, and then I'm attending RailsConf, and there's something else in June. Who knows? But that's it.
All right. I'll be at Lone Star attending. I'll be speaking at Open West. I'm giving Phil's API talk, which is nice.
Well, do you want my slides because they're better?
They are better than mine. The problem is I have to be really drunk to get your slides, and I try not to do that too often.
I realized that I was on Joined In, like there are reviews of all the talks. I didn't even know they were on there, and I went through like a year's worth of Joined In feedback, and it was just like, actually most of it was really good. I was surprised that people were actually like, oh, it was a good talk, I liked it. One of them was, really good content would have been much better if given in an even vaguely professional manner.
Is that the one where you're drinking tequila while you give the talk?
It wasn't my fault. They made me drink tequila on stage.
He did know that Phil Sturgeon was giving the presentation, right?
Yeah, they have to expect it at this point.
I know, right?
But anyway, sorry, Ben, I didn't mean to hijack your thing.
No, it's cool. The only other one currently on schedule is Seattle PHP one, which is Pacific Northwest PHP.
When is that again?
It's in September. I'm also an organizer, so I would love for everyone to submit their proposals to the CFP, which is currently open.
You kept that shit quiet. I didn't know you were organizing it. Or
I
helping.
was not organizing until like last week.
Yeah, I learned this right when I got on here talking with him.
Yeah. So we would love to see your proposals, and hope to see you there as well. Not Phil. Phil's not very professional.
Hey. I'm going to be there whether you like it or not.
I have the couch.
Hopefully we choose this time.
You wear many hats, Ben. Many hats. I'm impressed.
Well, I don't actually do anything. I just like titles.
Just look pretty. Okay, well that's enough of a circle joke talking about conferences and whatnot. Let's let's wrap that up.
All right, thanks for joining us, Josh. We appreciate
Yeah, no problem.
it.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks to everyone for watching and listening to episode 39 of the PHP Town Hall. Thank you.
Bye.